Good morning and welcome to SimWorld Today, Tuesday, June 10th edition. I am joined this Tuesday morning by Rico. Good morning, Rico. A lot to get after. I'm curious your take, which we can start at. Where do you the Pacers now 1-1 against Oklahoma City after a disappointing game 2 in a series I think most people would have expected this to be 2-0 Oklahoma City. It's not. So after, though, a dispiriting Game 2 loss, a Game 1 in which they led for just .3 seconds, in your opinion, are the Pacers done in the Western Conference? Because it kind of feels like it.
The Pacers aren't done. I don't think that the Pacers are done, and I think that when you look at what happened in Game 2, you didn't get the best performance from Tyrese Halliburton. And I think that if you're the Pacers, you're saying, okay, we know that he can play a lot better. And I also think, too, just collectively as a team, I think that they just really they turned the ball over a little bit too much. I think that they got or not Steph, they got Shea Gildress a lot more comfortable than they wanted to. And so I think that what they did in game one was they showed some resiliency. And so it's not going to look perfect when you're trying to beat Oklahoma City. I think that it's one of these things where the Pacers just need to stay close because they're one of the better clutch teams in the league. They've shown that all year. And so I think for them, they just want to stay attached in games. And so I don't think that this is a situation where you look at what the Thunder did and you say, oh, they've just figured them out. Because remember, the Thunder got beat by the Nuggets in game one. They came back and they just completely destroyed the Nuggets the next game out. This was not the case with the Pacers. I felt like they were very much in there, even though it was a tough game for them in game two.
You didn't think that was a blowout in Game 2?
I didn't. It was like, okay, if you compare that to what they did to the Nuggets, like I felt like that was more of a message that was sent. I don't think that I'm thinking that with the Pacers. I think that for them, because here's the thing, Marsh, I think that they've been a team that's shown so much resilience. Until I see them just get down, I cannot bet against this Pacers team. I mean, it's just how they play the game. Even when they're down, they're not really down. And so I do not believe that the Pacers are out. You look at Rick Carlisle and how tough he was as a player. I think that really, you could feel that identity with this team. And so I don't feel like that the Thunder have sent like a major blow that is going to put the Pacers out. That's just my personal opinion.
See, I kind of feel like they did. I mean, they were down, 19 at one point. Indiana hung around. Look, I would love to see the Pacers win. I would love to. It would be a great story for the anti-superstar because, look, Tyrese Halliburton, he's a top 20 guy, but he's not much higher than top 15 because he can't do it consistently. And that's the difference between the guys that can do it, the Shays, the all SWBA guys, the MVPs. They do it every single night. And I said this yesterday, Tyrese has had too many slow games. So I really felt like yesterday was that game because every time the Pacers got close, the Thunder would just rally back and hit it. And, I think it got to like 12 at one point, and then Oklahoma City just kind of tore away. I think the Pacers are done, but I don't know that they were ever really active. They didn't get played off the floor. They kind of got played off the floor in game one. They just rallied back in the fourth quarter, right? Game two, they were in it in the first quarter, and then it all fell apart in the second, and then they were never really within striking distance the rest of the way. I just don't think this Pacers team, and I don't think any team for that matter, matches up well with Oklahoma City. I think we keep talking about, there's parity, there's parity, there's parity. I think there's going to be parity for this season, and then it's pretty much back to a dynasty because I think that's just how good Now, look, that's how good Oklahoma City is. Am I putting the cart before the horse? Maybe, sure, a little bit, but I really do believe that this Oklahoma City team is just, it's so difficult to find a good matchup for the Pacers, and their good matchup, which is Tyrese Halliburton, has not looked good at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you as far as he hasn't looked good. I think that even when they won in game one, you wanted him to look a lot better. But the bottom line is, Marsh, they went in and they took care of business. They got what they needed. They needed to go in there and they needed to get a win on the Thunder's home court, and they did that. They got the split. Okay, and so right now, regardless of how we feel on the outside looking in, the Pacers did what they needed to do. The question now is, are the Pacers going to take care of business at home? And I'm banking on the fact that this is a team that has been down in games. This is
Mm-hmm.
a team that, look, you may have them down at some point in a series, but with the way that they have responded, I think that they've been one of the better teams in the league. And really, this is why they're in the position that they are in. I just think that the toughness here for the Pacers is something that is very underrated with this team. And I think the Thunder are going to find that out. And so we'll see what happens in game 3. But I am banking on the fact that the Pacers are going to make some adjustments and they're going to get right back into this series. I really have that gut feeling with the Pacers. And so you were asking me about them last round, and I was like picking the Pacers. And I'm like, I'm really feeling good about the Pacers and where they're at.
I think this will be competitive. I think though this goes six. I think Oklahoma City gets one of two in Indy, and I think this thing ends up going six. I don't know that that's what my pick would have been to begin with, but Oklahoma City has just been so much better. I don't think this is a negative on the Pacers so much it is a positive on Oklahoma City. Their depth, they have so many options. You can't figure out ways to beat them. SGA is dynamic. The number of defenders, I mean, I've said this over and over again, the number of defenders they can throw at people. And unless Tyrese Halliburton is going to start looking like the Knicks series version of him, I just struggle to find a confidence that this group, this Pacers team can make a run. Let's move on to the draft, and that's the number one pick is going to be Cooper Flack. The number two pick probably going to be Dylan Harper. Number three now is the conversation, and I'm curious, who do you have going number three? Do you think it's going to be, do you think it's going to be the Sixers picking at number three? Where are you at with the draft?
So I don't see the Sixers trading down. I don't see them trading down, even though there's been speculation that they might be interested in trading down. I think for them, this is the perfect time for them to set themselves up to really move past, I think, Embiid. I think that this is the time that they really go big. And I would like to go with Lamarian Sherwood. If I'm picking number 3 and I'm the Sixers here, I think that this is a terrific segue from Embiid. And I think that what happens now, you have Jared McCain, you have Tyrese Maxey, you get you a young big, you try to figure out what you're going to do to pivot off of Embiid and then eventually Paul George. But still, I think you're in a good situation if you're the Sixers and you go with Sherwood. And I like how he responded at the end of the year. He clearly was the difference maker on that Iowa team, and then they made a strong push. And so I think that toughness is something that the Philadelphia 76ers need. I think he's the perfect back to the basket type of fit that will go with those dynamic guards out there. And so that's my personal opinion at pick number 3. I think you could either go with Jamison Johnson, even though I like Sherwood a lot better than Johnson, my personal opinion.
I I don't know that the big is the move here, mostly because I don't know how you how you play them with Embiid.
Hmm.
Right, and I think that's the biggest problem is that your ticket to get rid of or to get off Embiid or get off of the Paul George scenario is to deal the number 3 pick, and that option doesn't really exist, right, to deal it because you need other pieces, right? Because I don't know that your return value, because I think there's still a lot of value at the number 3 pick that previous seasons might not have had. To me, I think it's Jalen Snow. Jalen Snow is big enough to play off ball next to Maxey. You might even be able to play him next to, and why am I blanking on the Duke kid's name right now?
Jared
But
McCain.
thank you, yes, Jared McCain. You can play Jalen Snow next to both of them. I think you can play Jalen Snow next to Paul George, and I don't. As I if we let's look at the two teams that are playing in the SWBA finals and the two teams that made the conference finals. What's their orchestration, right? What's their foundation? Well, the Thunder are led by SGA, a dynamic guard scorer, and a number of wings around him, right? And then your second best player is Jalen Williams, who's a wing, and your third best player is Chet Holmgren, who's like a stretch four, right? He's a stringy four. Okay, on the other side, it's the Pacers, whose their best player is Tyrese Halliburton. There's a guard. Their second best player is Pascal Siakam, who's a forward, and then it's a bunch of wings, right? And then the Knicks, their best player was Jalen Brunson. That's a guard, and then you've got Karl Anthony Towns, who plays best as a stretch four, and then the Minnesota Timberwolves, their best player guard, and then their second best player Julius Randle is a forward. None of those teams are fives. And so to me, I'm not investing the capital in a Jameson Johnson or a Lamarian Sherwood at number 3. And I'm also not doubling down and saying I need to find a way next after Joel Embiid, because only one big man has survived. Like a traditional back to the basket big man has survived. And that's what Jameson Johnson and Lamarian Sherwood are. They are back to the basket big men. And neither of them really possesses the type of playmaking that has made Nikola Jokic incredible. Neither of them possesses the physical, uniqueness of Victor Wembanyama. Bigs break down. 7-footers break down. And so if I'm the Sixers, I'm saying, look, I've got Tyrese Maxey. Let me get Jalen Snow, because I think he's a guy who's capable of being a number 2 wing and capable of being a number 2 guy, a number 1 wing, and I even think he can become potentially a number 1 guy on its own. I feel like that's what this team's missing, not a big.
Well, this is where, you put on your GM hat, and this is where it's like, okay, do I bank on potential? Is there potential with Sherwood? And I hate to throw that out there, but Marsh, that's what it is. When you're talking about a draft, there is nobody even knows if Cooper Flag is going to iron out. I mean, we don't know. But I'm just saying, like with a guy like Sherwood, you would want to see, okay, can he extend out a little bit? Can he become a good mid-range shooter? Can he be a good pick and pop guy? We don't really know that until actually gets put into that situation. And do I want to thrust him into the starting lineup initially as a rookie? Probably not, but he would probably have to play, because I'm not sure that Embiid is going to be able to play. And even if he were out there, I think with the way that his knee is, you could probably stagger him. I do get the argument where you say, okay, let's go with the wings, because I totally understand that when you're talking about like what the Thunder have with Jalen Williams, or what is going on here with I think with the Pacers and all the wings and things that they can throw at you. Like, totally get that. But at some point, you do have to get somebody that is going to be, I think, impactful in the paint. Getting boards and really imposing your will down there, because there's going to be times where the game slows down, 3-point shots aren't going in, and you need to probably carve up a team from the inside out. And so that's the thing that I would say with that. But I do see the argument that, hey, you go out and you get Jalen Snow. I think that if you do that, you're essentially saying that Paul George has got to go. And I just don't know with that contract who's going to want to take that on.
Well, I'd say the
I
same
don't
thing
know
about
who's going to take
Embiid.
that on.
Same thing about Embiid, though. His contract extension hasn't even kicked in yet, and he couldn't play a full
Yeah.
season. So I mean, I think that's the challenge that Philadelphia's in, and I think there's no really the pathway out of either of those contracts is to give up the number 3 pick. But the only way to actually be good once you get rid of Paul George and or Joel Embiid is to have the number 3 pick. So I think I think you can get a rebounder, you can get a shot blocker for $20 million. You can get Isaiah Hartenstein. You can get Mitchell Robinson. You can get a Miles Turner for 20 to 30 million. You don't need to do the 3rd overall pick in the draft to make that happen. Those guys are available elsewhere. And if I'm Philly, I'm aiming high. And if you look at the guys that have gone in the top recently, the one center that we had go, like true center, go in the top 5 was James Wiseman in 2020 recently, and we all see how that panned out. Speaking of college basketball, as we head into the college basketball offseason, we seeing guys sign. What program are you keeping your eye on the most?
This is going to sound wild. It really is, but I'm thinking of Syracuse. I
Okay.
really want to see what Coach Drayton is going to do with Syracuse. And I got a hunch with them, Marsh. I think that Syracuse is going to be a lot better this upcoming season. I really do. And so we know that there's some buzz around them right now in the feed and everything else. And so I think that Syracuse is a team that I'm certainly watching this upcoming season.
I like it, and they seem to be trending in the right direction. But to me, after this weekend where we saw some guys return, I think the team I'm most interested in watching is Jackson State. You know, D Woodley is returning. This is a team that kind of felt like they were preparing for life after D Woodley.
Yep.
How do they fare moving forward? Um, is he able to coexist on that roster? Is he able to, get his stock up a little bit more? I find that hard to believe. I was surprised that he decided to return, but I think to me it's Jackson State, and what do they do with this roster of theirs? How do they develop it? Does it coexist naturally, or does it kind of all fall apart? I think that's the most fascinating part of this whole thing.
I'm right there with you because I talked about this in yesterday's show on Clutch Time, and I was talking about him going back to school. And I said that the biggest beneficiary of him going back is Jackson State. I feel like that Mo Williams needs that toughness to come on back to this team, and they can maybe take care of some unfinished business. I think that he's perfect, for college basketball, and he's perfect for this program. And so I think that, yes, they get a captain back, they get a guy that gives them some identity. And I think that this team can definitely push forward and make more noise. I think that this is a program that very much is going to build on the momentum that they created last season. And so I'm right there with you there. As far as his draft stock is concerned, look, Marsh, unless he is going to get some type of massive growth spurt, or, he's going to just, just physically just become even more dominant in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if there's any way that he's going to increase that right now. And that's just my personal opinion. He's just a heck of a player, outstanding player, but I don't think that there's a way in which he's going to increase his draft stock. That's just me personally.
Yeah.
But maybe that's something that can be changed, though.
And I'm with you there. I don't think that there's a way for him to improve the draft stock from where he is, because the longer you stay in college, the Lamarian Sherwood is an anomaly. I've said that many times, but him
Yep.
climbing up as a senior and raising his draft stock is not the normal. And LDO, I'm not at all concerned about Lystarius Outlaw returning. I think he's still going to be a top pick, but his game is more polished already. I mean, he would have been a lottery pick if he went out as is. D Woodley, I would have pegged as like a 20s pick. He's It'll be harder, I think, especially with the class coming up. The number one pick is going to be one of Arthur Lattimore, D'Angelo Jordan, or Justin Bell. I mean, that's it. I don't. From everything I've heard when I've spoken to scouts at the SWBA level, that's who they like. That's the guys that they say we believe it's these three are set aside. If you get in the top three of this draft, that's who you're getting. You don't and Nas Hall, excuse me, Nas Hall, add that to the list. There's there's not much else beyond that, and I think Lee Outlaw might be able to get into that group. You're probably going to favor the younger guys, a bunch of sophomores over a guy that'll spend 4 years in college. D Woodley, not so much. He was always a fringe 20 guys. Now he's a senior. Maybe he gets into the lottery, but I don't think his stock changes all that dramatically. All right,
I got
Rico,
him. Oh, go
you
ahead.
got him. No, I was wrapping up. You finish us off. What do you got?
I got him at late first round, maybe a second round pick.
Right.
Honestly, that's where I'm at with it, and I'm right there with you because I wanted to bring this point out too from yesterday's show. When scouts, GMs are looking at the younger prospect, they're banking on the fact that they have longer time with the upside versus when you're the junior or now senior coming out. And so, talking about all the players that decide to go back, that puts you into a tough situation because you're a senior, you have these young prospects, and GMs are probably looking at, hey, I can get the younger player, I can get some more upside versus the senior that's
Right.
coming out. They might be tapped out. And so this is where it becomes a challenge. And so I think that Ladarius Outlaw is going to be right there. I think that Phenom, excuse me, they're going to get drafted, but I wonder, does the draft stock slip a little bit because of the young talent that's coming up? And so that's all I was going to say on that, Marsh.
It's certainly the stock next season. I would wager it might not. It might be as good as Cooper Flag. I think next season's draft is a better class with more high end talent than what we've got in this one. All right, Rico, appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you again on Tuesday. By then, we might have ourselves an SWBA champion to react to and start looking towards the off season. Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you all tomorrow morning here on SimWorld TV, the only place you can see the game, be the game.